Now, everyone, it's time to spread a bit of movie cheer.
Welcome to the Movie Cheer Podcast, the show for movie fans. I am your host AP, aka Mr. Movie Cheer, and on today's edition of the pod, I will be discussing best third movie in a trilogy movies. That's right, I'll be looking at some of my favourite trilogies, but more importantly, the third movie in those trilogies. Some of my favourites, some of the best in my opinion. So I got 4 picks today, and that's for today's headline topic. But before we get to today's headline topic of the pod, I like to start the show off with a segment called What's Been on the Screen.
What's been on the screen? The screen. What's been on the screen?
What's been on the screen? What have I been watching over this past week or so, ladies and gents? Well, I'm going to start off with a movie, and I'm kind of ashamed to admit that I've never seen this, but there's got to be a first time for everything, I suppose, isn't there? And that movie is the original Fright Night, 1985 release. This movie, this is, starring Roddy McDowall as Peter Vincent. You have the young kid. I don't know what the young guy's name is, but basically, Fright Night, 1985. I suppose a classic horror movie from the 80s. I've seen the remake with Colin Farrell was in the remake a few years back. I say it's a few years, probably like 10 years old now. If I'm being honest, I really enjoyed the remake when I watched it, and I always thought I need to check out the original Fright Night. Never got round to watching it. I watched the remake a few years back now. But I just decided, let's give it a watch, see what it's like. And this is a movie I will say, first off, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was great. I'm not a big horror guy. If you're a regular viewer of the channel, you know I'm not a big horror fan. It leaned into definitely horror comedy, but there was definitely some scary moments in this movie for sure. But it wasn't, for me, I'm getting better. I'm trying more and more horror at the moment. To me, there's a certain level of horror I can feel like there's a certain threshold for myself. Fright Night was within that threshold, so I could watch it. Like I said, it's always stuff like movies like your Saw, stuff like that. I can't stomach them movies, but this was a really solid movie. And I said, I was watching this, and I first thing I was thinking, this is an ideal movie for Halloween. The premise of the movie, if you've never watched it, basically, a young kid called Charlie, they get a new neighbor next door in this house next door, this haunted house, and he starts seeing, unusual things. They bring in like a coffin. And then he works out, he sees for himself that the next door neighbor is a vampire. And it's like, then it's the whole story, the vampire realizes that he knows he's a vampire. And then it's this whole story with him and his friends going up against him. Then comes into the story, the late great Roddy McDowall. If you don't know that name, Roddy McDowall, he starred in the original Planet of the Apes series, the TV show, and the movies. Throughout all the movies, played a few different characters in them, but he was playing ape characters in the movies. He was all in makeup, so this is the first time for myself, and I know he has been in a lot of other movies and TV stuff. I've never seen him. I think I'd seen his face on like a Wikipedia thing or something before, but I'd never seen him acting, and it was so weird because you could hear his voice from Planet of the Apes, his Roddy McDowall's voice. But to see him as a human, it was like really weird to see for the first time for myself, see him acting as a human, and I thought he was fantastic. And basically, the role he plays as Peter Vincent is this TV host, like a Svengoolie type TV show host of like horror channel, and he's like an ex-actor in this movie. In Fright Night, Peter Vincent, he used to play like this vampire hunter in all these like classic movies, similar to like your Draculas and stuff like that in the movie. So a movie within a movie, he's like a well-known actor. But then this young kid, Charlie, gathers him up and gets him in because he feels like he's the only one he can like trust with killing vampires and with killing the next door neighbor. And it just absolutely, it just creates this really nice dynamic with this young lad and this TV show host slash vampire hunter, but he's not really a vampire hunter. He just played a vampire hunter on TV, and it's a really fun story. And there's a lot of great comedy moments in this, but the practical effects of the vampires look amazing, especially when the transformations are taking place. You see it later on in the movie more so. It's phenomenal. The effects, the special effects, practical effects really do still win over for me. And this, I was speaking to a few different people. I spoke to my brother-in-law the day after, and I was saying it was like the practical effects. It is scary. Some of the stuff you're looking at, you're like, wow, this is crazy. But it is. I said this to my sister as well, my sister cheer, and I said she used to watch it with my dad growing up, like them sort of horror movies, Lost Boys and Fright Night, all them, and she kind of said the same thing. It's got that same vibe of like a Lost Boys, and I agreed. I kind of like that is. I think that's spot on. That it really has got that vibe of like that Lost Boy of horror. So I think if you like stuff like Lost Boys, you'll definitely enjoy this movie. But for me, by far, and this is not taking a dump on the remake, such a better movie. I feel like it felt a bit different story-wise. I may be wrong, but yeah, I really enjoyed it a lot more than the remake. I thought if I was going to watch it again, I'd definitely go for the original again. What is surprising as well, there is a sequel, and I've heard it's not meant to be brilliant, the sequel, but I'd definitely be interested in checking it out at some point. But this is a movie I am definitely going to be watching either on Halloween night or around Halloween time. Definitely this movie it's just perfect for Halloween. It's this movie was made for Halloween, in my opinion. I think it's a fantastic film. But yeah, great movie, great score as well. You got Brad. Let me not butcher his name. Brad Fidel. He did the music for the likes of Terminator. So it's got like a really 80s like synth style soundtrack to it. I really liked. I thought it was great, but it just has that sort of feel to it. You know, that Halloween feel. It's a real fun horror movie. I really enjoyed it, and I will certainly be watching it again. So Fright Night, I had a great time watching that film. What else have I been watching? Well, another movie I watched the other week was a movie called The Count of Monte Cristo. There has been several versions of this movie. This is a 1975 release starring Richard Chamberlain as Edmond Dantes, also The Count of Monte Cristo. This film was... I seen this film... discussed on Stuart George's channel. So Stuart George's Home Movies. I will leave a link to Stuart's channel below as well. Stuart is a top guy, and I've really enjoyed watching a lot of his content recently. I think he's got a cracking channel, really great channel, and I really want to say thank you to Stuart for recommending this movie. I seen it in one of his videos. I thought I've got to check this out because it sounds like something I'd like. He mentioned it as like a prison escape movie, and I love prison escape movies. So check this out. So 1975 movie. Richard Chamberlain's in this. You've got Tony Curtis, Donald Pleasance. So it's got a cracking cast of actors in the really good pedigree to start off with. And like I said, I knew nothing about this. There have been several remakes. I think Guy Pearce, he was starring in a remake in the early 2000s, probably around the same time he did the Time Machine remake around that era. But yeah, 1975, it was a made-for-TV movie. What's the premise of the Count of Monte Cristo? Basically, not to spoil it all, I think it must be set in it's like 1700s, 1800s, something like that. Basically, you've got this character played by Richard Chamberlain. He gets back from the ship, and sum it up, he gets thrown in prison for doing nothing. And then the three culprits behind it, these three of these men are behind it. Tony Curtis is one of those characters, Donald Pleasance as well, and they kind of get rich. They get all the heights of what they wanted to get, and it's all due to the fact that the contributing fact is the fact that they threw this guy in prison for just having a message for someone, passing on the message, and they throw him in a cell on this island similar to like an Alcatraz for many years. I think it's like 15, 20 years he's in this cell, and then let's do spoiler warning because I don't want to spoil it too much. So spoilers ahead. He gets out of prison. He escapes the prison, and I wouldn't like. I think it's definitely got that prison. It's got a few elements in this, and I think Stuart mentioned this when I was talking to him about it. It's a good revenge movie, if anything else, as well. I think it's got two great things in it. It's got a great revenge story, and it's also got that prison escape element, which I like as well. And it's also got like a bit of a treasure hunt in there as well. So basically, the guy in a cell opposite him gives him this map, and he helps him escape. He gives him a treasure map as well, and then he escapes prison, and then he finds this this big treasure in Monte Cristo. And then what he does, he reinvents himself, and this is like I said, 20 years after he's been in prison. And then you go back to the place, the town, the city where he was thrown in prison, where he's from. And all them characters who got him sent to prison are still enjoying the riches of the success. But really, it's the foundations of it. It's all through being bad people, basically. Not telling the truth, doing bad acts and bad things. And they get a message that the Count of Monte Cristo is coming to the town. And then you see you link up. He's got this big treasure. And he reinvents himself, Richard Chamberlain's character, as the Count of Monte Cristo. And you must I suppose the story is that he must have he's come out of nowhere. He's this count. He's super rich, and then he comes to the town, and he's changed his look, so he looks completely different from when he was thrown in prison. None of them recognise him. He's got white hair. He's got a little beard. He kind of looks a bit like Richard Branson, if I'm being honest, like a young Richard Branson. And none of them recognise him. But then he plots his revenge against these three men who, basically got him put away in prison for 20 years of his life, basically. And it is a superb revenge story because he gets the upper hand over all of these men without really doing anything. He doesn't kill them, he doesn't do anything like that. He outsmarts them. He's a strategic guy. He outsmarts them all. And, he has become, basically, in the end of the story, he's trying to find his love interest, who he lost many years ago, and she ends up marrying, I think it's Tony Curtis's characters in this. And in the end, she kind of just says to him, basically, you're not the person I left. You are now, you're the Count, you're Monte Cristo. And it's true, because it's like all of this stuff, all the struggles and all the path he taken and the path he took in going to prison and then having this revenge story. He became someone different. He became the Count of Monte Cristo. And it was really, I thought it was really cool, that idea of reinvention. With all he literally reinvented himself. He played two different characters in the movie, basically, because of that reinvention story and the story of getting to that point. But yeah, an absolutely solid movie. So I highly recommend it. If you've not checked, I'm sure you probably, if you watch this channel, I'm sure you would have heard of Stuart's channel. But if you've not already, check out his channel. He's got a great physical media collection, but he's got he's a really big fan of movies, and it's really interesting when you watch his videos and you hear about these movies you never would have heard of before. Sometimes like that, like the Count of Monte Cristo. I think it's something I may have heard of in the past, but never knew what it was. And then Stuart explained it on his channel in one of his videos, and I thought, wow, that's something I would like. And yeah, really enjoyed it. Great movie. But that's what's been on my screen recently. Now, let's get to today's headline topic.
The Movie Cheer Podcast presents the headline topic for the episode.
Remember to spread a bit of movie cheer.
Headline topic. Headline topic.
Remember to spread a bit of movie cheer.
So today's headline topic, best third in a trilogy movies. I've got 4 to discuss, ladies and gents. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about some of my favourite trilogies, but the third movie in those trilogies. I think sometimes it is hard because, a trilogy of movies, to get a trilogy from the first movie to the second movie to the third movie, to get them all right. And I always feel like sometimes the second movie is always the defining movie and it is always the best movie. To do a third movie, sometimes you look at The Dark Knight. I think The Dark Knight Rises was nowhere near as good as The Dark Knight. I think there's only certain trilogies that really do it for me. And, I've mentioned a few in the past on the channel, but I thought let's discuss 4 new movies today. Maybe some of them I've spoken about before. But let's get to it. Let's talk about these movies. So the first one I want to talk about is a movie series that I'd watched the first one many years ago, really enjoyed it, but never got around to watching the other 2. And that is the Maze Runner trilogy. But more importantly, the third movie in that trilogy, which is the Maze Runner: The Death Cure. Now, for this movie, I'm going to give spoilers ahead for all of these movies just in advance, ladies and gents. So if you've never watched any of these movies, there will be spoilers for this headline topic, just to let you know. But first of all, The Death Cure. This is a movie starring Dylan O'Brien, Kaya Scodelario, and Giancarlo Esposito. Many would know him from, The Mandalorian, Breaking Bad. And this is, first of all, I like I said, I watched The Maze Runner years ago, the first one. Really enjoyed it, but like many movies sometimes, I just never got around to watching all of them. And this past week, I had a few days free, watched The Maze Runner, the first one again, really enjoyed it. Second one, really good bridging movie. The third movie, though, fantastic. The Death Cure, super. Basically, this movie, it's set in a world where there's a virus taking over the human condition. Not many people are surviving, and this organization called Wicked are experimenting on children because they believe the children, they put them under enough stress, they can find a cure, and they can take stuff from the blood and from the brain, and they basically experiment on children and do like trials and put them through extreme stress in like this big maze from the first movie, and many other different trials, put them under increased stress and pressure. And they're experimenting on children to try and get this cure, because basically the human race is basically turned into these zombies. And the idea of this movie is to find the cure and get to a safe haven. That's the premise of this movie for these young kids, this group of young kids led by Dylan O'Brien's character. And basically they go into this big city, the last city, that is run by Wicked during this story, to try and find this cure that, to stop him, to stop Wicked, and to try and get away, basically. And they want to try and get one of the friends who is in captive with them. So this is where the story leads to. But what I will say, this is phenomenal. I feel like it's a bit of an underrated movie as well, this movie. It was directed by Wes Ball, who is directing he's just done the new Planet of the Apes movie, the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. He's going to be doing the Legend of Zelda movie as well. But more importantly, what I enjoyed about this movie, and I feel you only get it with certain movies all the time, where you get a genuine emotional reaction to a movie. Now, the first movie I thought was great. It had great scenes, and I think what the first movie did well, it did well. Second movie I felt was a really decent movie. Not as good as the first one, but a bridging movie. And then, like I say, you got to that third movie, The Death Cure, but it had everything. It had a great finale. It finished the story. Quote to Cody Rhodes, he finished the story. But it really did. It finished the story. It finished, to get the plot at the end was they got to the safe haven. They got the cure. Everyone was safe. But it had a really emotional, by the end of this, because, there's some characters who lost their lives in the story. I felt like it really did the finale really well. Some really dramatic scenes, but I had a real emotional connection, which was built up over this trilogy, and really, in the last movie, really lent into it, that emotional attachment to the characters. And I thought it was a fantastic film. I really do think it is a superb film that really is not talked about enough this series, because I think it is one I'm really going to watch again. I can see this is like another Star Wars for me. This is something I'm going to watch over and over again, because I really enjoyed it. But yeah, it was a solid movie. I think it just, as well, some of the great, additions. You've got Aidan Gillen in there, who played the main villain in the final movie of Jansen. He was in the second movie as well. A lot of people would know him as Littlefinger in the Game of Thrones series. He was superb as well. I think, again, that's another thing. They had a great cast in there, but great characters as well. I think that's where you get that emotional attachment to the characters, and where you really enjoy that story, and you really just like, by the end of it, I was a bit like emotional. I was like, wow, this is a science fiction movie in this dystopian world, and I am getting this like really emotional about these characters, and that's when I knew it was a good movie. I got that with like The Last Guardians of the Galaxy, and it was a similar vibe, it's a science fiction movie. And I think when they can do that with them type of movies, it's a lot harder than just a normal dramatic movie set in like a normal realistic world. When it's in a science fiction world, it's harder to do, but they nailed it. And I think it was one of the best final movies I've watched in recent times. I really enjoyed it. Well worth checking out. And that is the Maze Runner: The Death Cure. The next movie I want to discuss is a movie for sure I have talked about on the channel before, but let's discuss it again because I love this. It feels itself. I'm legally obliged to mention Star Wars on most episodes. And this is the third movie in the original trilogy, which is Return of the Jedi, released in 1983. I want to talk about this. This is, for me, the original trilogy, my favourite. It really did everything well. It had a great payoff, and you can look at it, all the things they've done afterwards. Some people don't like stuff. I like stuff. Some stuff I don't like as well. But in general, this was a perfect ending to the original trilogy. And even in this movie, there's some parts I'm not really keen on, like the Ewoks. I give or take them, really, if I'm being honest. But I think what they did with Vader in this movie was great. In the end, him turning on the Emperor and then, saving his son, Luke Skywalker, and then him dying in the end. And then I was watching the scene again the other day, and he's like, Luke's trying to save him, and he's like dragging him through at the end, and then he's like saying, I've got to save you. And he says, like, you already have, Luke. You did save me. And I think that is such an emotion. Again, having that emotional reaction to characters and to the scenes, and then certain scenes that offer that is a scene there. You already have Luke, and it's like he saved him even though he was dying. It's like he saw good in him, and I think I thought it was just really well done again, and that's in a science fiction movie, a science fiction fantasy movie. I was discussing this with my friend recently as well. He was saying about like Cineworld are doing these things on Sundays where they're playing all classic movies. I think it's all the Star Wars movies on Sundays over the next couple of months. And I said to him, yeah, if I get some time off, I'm definitely going to go and see it on one day. I think it's like on selected days, the films. And I just think to myself, like, Return of the Jedi, imagine seeing that in the cinemas at the time. I think it would have been the hype of that movie, because that was like the Avengers of the time. It must have been amazing to see in the cinema that finale when Vader turns and when he saves Luke. And I think at the end as well, when you see the original Force Ghost as well. Obviously, we see in the cuts years later, Hayden Christensen has been, put onto that instead of the original actor. But it must have been so cool at the time. In the end, you see Darth Vader as a Jedi instead. It's like it's the ultimate from darkness to light, and that was really cool to see. And obviously, I seen them cuts as a kid on the videos on the VHS, which was always good to see. And I encourage you, if you've never watched the original cut, to try and check it out or check some clips out on YouTube. But yeah, Return of the Jedi, I think it's a great trilogy ending movie. I think A New Hope, again, I think this is the one where it's not the strongest of the three for sure. I personally love the first movie. It's probably my favourite, but I love Empire, and I like Return of the Jedi. I think they're all great, but yeah, I think it's a perfect ending to that trilogy, and I think it marks as a good finale to that trilogy as well. That's why it's one of my best third in the trilogy movies. Next one I want to move on to is a fairly recent movie, and again, spoilers ahead for this because it is very fresh still, but that is Deadpool and Wolverine, the third movie in the Deadpool trilogy, and this time we got Wolverine, Hugh Jackman in there as Logan Wolverine, returning into that role after the fantastic performance in Logan, and then you've got Ryan Reynolds returning as Deadpool, and basically the story is, we've got the TVA in there. Basically, they've got to, in this story, it's like he's got to find a Wolverine that can help be the sort of linchpin for the world. I can't remember what the term they use, like anchor beings, that's it. And he ends up getting this Wolverine from this other universe, and then they go into this, what's the world called? From the Loki show. I forget what it's called. It's like the Battleground. Is it Battle World? Is it? I don't think it is Battle World. It's called, but it's called that. The Void is the Void, isn't it? And they go onto this planet, and then you see all the cameos from like the likes of Blade in there as well. You've got Elektra. You've got Ryan, what's his name? Channing Tatum stars as Gambit in there as well. And you've got X-23 in there. And it's just a really fun movie. But I think the best part of it is, that team up of Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds. I watched this at the cinema the other week. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was an absolute phenomenal movie. I had a lot of fun watching it. It's just a fun movie. Every Deadpool movie so far has been really fun, and I think each one has got better and better and better. And I think the third one, for me, is definitely the best movie in the trilogy. I think the highlights of it, for sure, are seeing Hugh Jackman return as Wolverine. That could have been a role they could have easily recast it at some point here, and they probably will do it in the future at some point, but I think he's still great in that role. I think he can still do it. But to see him in the yellow suit with the mask on for the first time, it is great. It was so cool to see. It was like, why didn't they... I can get why. I think in the 90s, it felt... Well, what was it was 2000, wasn't it? The first X-Men movie came out. Maybe back then it just wouldn't have worked. Maybe I think we were in that Matrix era, weren't we? Matrix and Blade era, where it was just like black overcoats, everything was like black lycra, black leather. we weren't interested in adding like yellow and blues and reds to the color scheme in that era. But I think now they've with Disney, with Marvel, they're definitely at that point where they can explore them comic accurate costumes. Do you know what? One of my favorite parts of the movie was very early on in the movie, where it had Huey Lewis and the news playing, and I think Deadpool says it's like time for a montage. And he's going around trying to find a different variant of Logan, of Wolverine. And we see all these different variants. We see like Old Man Logan. We see Henry Cavill's version of Wolverine, which was really cool. And I love that scene because it was so cheesy and just so over the top. And with with that song, "The Power of Love" by Huey Lewis and the News from Back to the Future, it was so much fun. But then, and the end scene as well, when they had Madonna. What's it called? What's the thingy? What's the song? Thingy on a Prayer. Not Living on a Prayer. That's Bon Jovi. I can't think of the song. Put it in the comments if you remember that song. Put it in the comments below. Like a Prayer. That's it. I think that is that Duran Duran or Madonna. It's one of them. You know what I'm on about. But that song, and when he puts on the mask for the first time, and the music kind of like goes into like this orchestral music for a second, and then it hits back into Madonna. That is a great scene. And then that goes into like this one-shot fight scene, like side on, kind of like a video game, where they're taking on the Deadpool core, which is so cool to see. And it's really, quite bloody in that scene. But it was just like, that is what us as fans wanted to see for years. And I absolutely loved it. But yeah, I think, favorite moments are, like I said, that fight scene, the just seeing him do the suit for the first time. I think Emma Corrin as the villain in this was really good, as Xavier's sister was really good. I think all the cameos are great. Seeing Blade again was great. And I'm hoping we see a lot more of these characters return for Secret Wars and future Avengers movies, because I thought they were all great to see. Sean Levy directed this movie. I think he did a great job. I'd love to see him do more Marvel movies in the future, because I think he's a very talented director. But I just want to see more Wolverine. I want to see more Deadpool. And I'm interested to see what the future lies. I think this has really made Marvel seem a bit more intriguing again, thankfully. It's given that bit more of excitement to Marvel movies again. I think with the announcement as well of, I'm getting off track here, but with Doctor Doom, of Robert Downey Jr. returning to Marvel, I think Marvel's on the right point again, and it's going into a good future, I feel, at this point. So, yeah. But that is another one of my favourite movies from third movies in a trilogy. Now let's get to the final choice. Now, the final choice is not really... It's not a story trilogy, but it is counted as a trilogy, and that is the Man with No Name trilogy, the Dollar trilogy. And the movie I'm talking about is the 1966 movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. We had Fistful of Dollars, a few dollars more in that trilogy. The third one, directed by Sergio Leone, starring Clint Eastwood in this movie as a starring role as the good guy. We know him as Blondie in this movie, and it is a spaghetti western movie. I've always loved these movies. Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Sorry, I just spelled it's a burp. I just had a big pizza beforehand. It is by far one of my favourite movies out there. I love it. I've not watched a ton of westerns, if I'm being honest, but it is phenomenal. I think this movie, for me, the story premise of the movie is they find out about, you have the good, the bad, and the ugly. Van Cleef plays the bad, which is Angel Eyes. You've got the ugly, I can't remember the actor's name, but he's a character named Tuco, and the good, and Blondie played by Clint Eastwood. And they find out about this. There's some grave somewhere, and there's gold in the grave, and the story is to try and find the gold, try and find the grave, basically. They team up, ugly and the good, and then at the end you see a big a big stir down, a big shootout between the three of them, these characters, and a really good story in between as well. This for me, like I said, the stories of this trilogy doesn't kind of link. I think canonically it is very much like this would be the first movie, I'm pretty sure, because it's set before the end of the Civil War. I think the other ones are set after, I'm pretty sure. But the character is meant to be the same character as far as I'm aware in the whole trilogy. The man with no name, Clint Eastwood's character, and it's a phenomenal Western. I was watching, and this is not taking a shot at, I suppose it is really, but Once Upon a Time in the West, which was another movie directed by Sergio Leone. I watched that recently for the first time, and I've heard it spoke about really, highly regarded by a lot of people. I watched that. I was nearly falling asleep watching it. I felt like the story was just going nowhere. It had a few moments of greatness, but then I think it was just a well-shot movie, but it didn't have the story, didn't have the music. Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is totally different. The story throughout, you are engaged in. I think there's so many moments in that movie where you're just like, yes, this is great. There's loads of great shootouts in the movie. Great character work from all these characters. I think, especially with Tuco and Blondie, the sort of like buddy cop sort of thing throughout the story is great. They kind of don't like each other, but they work together through a lot of the story. And then you got Van Cleef as the bad guy, Angel Eyes, him coming in as well. Doesn't play a pivotal role in the majority of the movie. It's more near the end of the movie. But he plays a great role in this as well. And it's just, again, it's got everything. It's got the music, it's got the cast, great characters, great story. Ennio Morricone, his music in this really adds a lot to it as well. I watched it yesterday again, and I went out afterwards, put my headphones on, went for a walk, put on Ecstasy of Gold and the Good, Bad, and the Ugly theme songs. And they were both just like, I was like, wow, this is so cool. The shootout at the end at the graveyard is phenomenal, because you think like, who's going to win this? And then you see Clint, he shoots the bad, and then he gets all the gold, and you think he's going to hang Tuco, and he has him hanging, and then he like goes off on his horse, and you think he's going to hang him, but then he shoots him, the rope down, and then that's like the end of the movie. But it's just got everything. I think it's just a solid movie and a great movie in that, the final movie in the Sergio Leone Dolls trilogy. I think it's fantastic. I think it's for me, a 10 out of 10 movie for sure. And yeah, an absolute great movie to finish a trilogy on. But the 4 of my favourites. Let me know some of your choices, some of your favourite best third in the movie trilogy movies. Now, let's move on to the next segment of today's show.
Case covers take on other case covers. Can you handle that? Case cover collision. Case cover collision.
Case cover collision. Each and every episode, I choose a different movie and look at the different case covers for that movie and put them up against each other to find out which one is the best on case cover collision. This week on the episode, I will be looking at The Nightmare on Elm Street, and I'm looking at a DVD, a Blu-ray, and 2 4K releases. It's getting a new 4K release. I think it's possibly the first 4K release coming up soon. And I thought, let's have a look at these movies, case covers. First of all, let's talk about the movie, though. It is a movie I've watched many, many years ago. I've watched them all. I remember having the DVD collection years ago, watched them all. At the time, I thought, I think I enjoyed them for what they were. I think, again, this is another one I definitely need to revisit very soon, maybe around Halloween time. I know a lot of people say, like, the first movie is fantastic, and they kind of go a bit, when they go further afield, they don't get as good, but definitely one I want to revisit. But this is the first movie. Let's check it out. So we got Freddy Krueger here. Let's look at, first of all, the first movie we're going to look at is the new 4K release. This is a standard 4K release, and we got here Freddy Krueger on here on the front cover. and he's basically looking towards the cover. And I think for this, he is the ultimate scary-looking 80s horror icon, isn't he, Freddy Krueger? He looks horrifying. He's the skin, the skin, the heart, the fingers with the Logan sort of hands, the claws, looks really, really, the daggers, if you like, the daggers on his hands. It just looks terrifying. It looks amazing as well. The makeup is fantastic. But yeah, so he's looking on in the shot, looking at the camera face on. It's like a mid shot, and then you've got underneath in the middle, you've got A Nightmare on Elm Street, that red text, and then underneath that in the white text on Elm Street. Underneath that, you've got a film by Wes Craven, and in the background, it's kind of like a red cloud effect, which I think is a really cool look to it. And then on the side, you've got like a red border going around, kind of looks like a blood sort of like a stain to it. I like the look of this. I think it's a really good cover. First of all, you throw the horror icon, that image of him on the, straight away, it's a horror movie by the looks of him. It's definitely not a Disney movie. It looks terrifying. It looks like if you were into horror movies, you see this down a DVD aisle and you've never heard of this movie before, you're going to be signing yourself up straight away. I really like the colours here. I think it really blends in really, really well. Now, let's look at the next one. This is the new Steelbook. Yes, the Steelbook 4K of Nightmare on Elm Street. So this is the front cover, and it's got I think it's the young girl. I think the female character. I know Johnny Depp is in the first movie as well. The female character, she's in bed. Obviously, you don't fall asleep because that's when you see Freddy Krueger in your dreams, and she's looking up, and it's kind of like she's like a painted image. It looks here almost, and she's in bed looking up. Her eyes are wide open. She looks terrified. She's kind of shot. Then you've got like them daggers above her head. To the right, it's a black background, this Steelbook. To the right, you've got that same logo again, much smaller now, in the top right-hand corner, Nightmare on Elm Street. Wes Craven's name above that in a white text as well. I don't really like this cover, if I'm being honest. I think it looks a bit thrown together. Maybe if I watch the movie, maybe I'd be like, oh, maybe that looks like a really solid movie. It fits for a certain scene, but it just doesn't look that good, if I'm being honest. It looks like a 5-year-old's done it, if I'm being honest. It really doesn't look good. I'm not really that impressed with this 4K cover. If I was buying a 4K Steelbook, I would expect a much better cover than this. I know I've got nothing good to say about this cover. I'm sorry. I can't say. I'm not going to lie. I think it is. This is probably the worst case cover I have seen on Case Cover Collision before. Mr. Movie Cheer. There's no cheer in this one today. I'm taking Mr. Movie Cheer. Mr. Movie Cheer's gone. He's gone. He's dead. I'm not feeling this cover, guys. I'm really not feeling it. So far I've got to go with that 4K standard, much better cover. Next up, we go with the standard DVD cover of A Nightmare on Elm Street. This is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. You got the glove, of his just on like a red background here. It's like placed on a red floor, but it's got that gradient effect from a red to a black color around this cover. On the top, it's just a very standard font of A Nightmare on Elm Street in white text. Above that, a film by Wes Craven. Underneath, it says, "Whatever you do, don't fall asleep." This is a quote, obviously, by some sort of film journalist. I love that. I think it's a really good quote. I think it's really good again. It's just, this signifies it's a horror movie because you can see the claws. It's got blood stains on it. It looks terrifying. Again, if you don't really know the series before, you see this and you're looking, it's definitely not something for families. It looks like a horror movie. It looks something that's look quite dark. And I love it. I think it's a very simple cover, but I think it works for this movie series. Maybe just, I think what I would possibly change here would be the logo. I think it would be much better served with that other logo. I think it would work a bit better, but I suppose it would have been a bit too much red in there. Maybe it just wouldn't have fitted in. I don't know. I do think that with that other logo would have been a nice touch. So it's nice, but I think so far, again, the 4K standard is definitely winning through for me. And next up, we have the final one. We have the Blu-ray cover. Now, the Blu-ray cover is, again, a very terrifying cover. It's a very terrifying look. you've got Freddy on the front cover. It's a black background. Freddy is a close-up shot, and he's got his hand with his claw, with his glove there, and it's like on his shoulder, and he's looking into the camera in a very sinister look with his hat on. And it's very much in a sort of like a red colour to his skin as well. It's like there's like a red light shining on his face on this one. And in the background, it looks like it's like a black background, a bit of red. There's stuff going in the background. The text on this, it's kind of very much the same font as the last one. Very simple font, but it's got it looks like a white and yellow gradient to it as well. Very simple again. Maybe that new logo is not something they used previously. I don't know if that's used in the movie, that new logo from the 4K. But yeah, very simple, but it works again. It's a very simple cover, but it's got the horror villain on there. It looks sinister, it looks scary. Exactly what you want from a horror movie cover. But which one is the winner of this week's edition of Case Cover Collision? I've got to go with that standard 4K. I think it looks brilliant. I think it's a great cover. Freddy Krueger on in full attire, a great look. The logo I love the logo. I think the logo really works. It's a great looking logo. The background, the red colours, it really fits. I think it really pops. I think it's a great looking cover, and it is my winner of this week's edition of Case Cover Collision. Now let's move on to the next segment of today's show.
The Amazon Top 10 is approaching. Prepare yourself. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Amazon Top 10 has arrived.
The Amazon Top 10. Each and every week I give you the Amazon Top 10 for the best sellers list for 4Ks, DVDs and Blu-rays on amazon.co.uk. Now let's look at the top 10 for this week. First of all, at number 10, we have Wonka on DVD. A movie I've still not got around to seeing, but I will do soon. At number 9, we have Aliens, the 4K release. At number 8, we have Furiosa, a Mad Max saga movie on Blu-ray. At number 7, we have Furiosa again at number 7. At number 6, we have the upcoming release of the 25th anniversary of American Pie on 4K. At number 6, that is cool to see an American Pie movie in the top 10 as well. At number 5, we have Dune Part 2 on DVD. At number 4, we have Dune Part 2 again on Blu-ray. It's held the number 1 slot for quite a few weeks now, so it's definitely going down finally, that one. At number 3, we have the new release of Seven Samurai on limited edition 4K. At number 2, we have Fall Guy on DVD. Cracking movie, that. Really enjoyed that one. And at number 1, we have the Fall Guy, the Blu-ray release at number 1. We've got a new number 1 at the top of the number 1s. That is great to see. Finally, a new number 1. Fall Guy, a really good movie. Really enjoyed that. And that is the Amazon Top 10 for this week. Now let's move on to the final segment of today's show, and that is Not So Worthy Blockbuster Housekeeping. This is the part of the show where I just kind of have a wind down, we just have a little chit-chat and easing out the end of the show. So, what's going on in Movie Cheer Town, ladies and gents? Well, first of all, I want to talk about an event that's coming up in a few weeks' time, and that event is Movie Cheer Fest 2. Movie Cheer Fest 2, we did it 2 years ago on the channel, and I really enjoyed it. Last time around, it was 2 live shows, a Movie Cheer Town edition and a Movie Cheer podcast episode, with some great collaborators on both of those episodes. This time round, doing it a bit differently. It's not going to be a live episode. I've decided, I feel like the best... I think for me, I feel more comfortable in the environment of putting together a show, a pre-recorded show, getting a bunch of collaborators involved. So I'm getting a few people sending some videos over. We're doing a collaboration, and it's going to be, as far as I know at this moment in time, I will give you as it stands. It's going to be the last weekend. So it's going to be the 31st of August and the 1st of September. That'll be the Saturday and the Sunday. This is when the 2 episodes of the podcast will come out. It's going to be 80s themed. That's all I will say for now. It's going to be an 80s movie themed episode. I've got some collaborators already joining me who have sent in some great videos already for that episode, and I am so excited to put it together. Looking forward to it, and hopefully get a few more people involved as well in the meantime. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I think, like I said, it's just a big, for me, Movie Cheer Fest is, I don't do that many during the year collaborations. It's that time of year where I can, get a bunch of people involved, people who I really like watching the channels, people who I just enjoy spending time with and talking to about movies, get together and put together a fun episode. Two fun episodes, hopefully. So that's coming up at the end of August, so I'm looking forward to sharing that with you all. What else has been going on in Movie Cheer Town? Let's talk about some comments in the Movie Cheer Town community, guys. First of all, we've got on the recent Alphabet Movie Collection video on the letter C, we've got Greg Simpson here, and Greg said, John Lithgow has such a wide range in his acting. Have you ever seen a movie called Ricochet, 1991? I've heard of it, I've never watched it, Greg. I'll have to check that one out. He's a bad guy in that, and again, in Raising Cain, again, another movie I've not seen, definitely will check that out. As for your C movies, great selections. I also love Castaway. Oh, Castaway is a cracking movie. Looking forward to D. Thank you, sir. That's what he said. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Greg. That's a lovely comment. Thank you very much. And I will be getting around to watching them selections you mentioned as well, too, buddy. Next up, we have Charlie McLaughlin. In the same video, he said Clerks for a letter C movie. Quite a safe choice, to be honest. Clerks is one I've seen many years ago. I like some of the Jay and Silent Bob movies. Clerks, I definitely need to give another go to, because I wasn't super keen on it first time round, but I definitely want to check that out again. So thank you very much for the recommendation there, Charlie. Next up, we have Mark G. And Mark G is mentioned on the same video. He said, great choices for C, AP. From my collection, it would be Columbian, Cowboys and Aliens, Cold Mountain, Clash of the Titans, and City of Life and Death. I can certainly say Clash. I'm getting tongue-tied here. It's been a long episode. Clash of the Titans is superb. Fantastic movie. Both the original and the remake. I think both are great movies. So I'm definitely going to have to... Cowboys and Aliens, I remember watching that years ago. That's the Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford movie. And I can't really remember I really can't remember that movie, if I'm being honest. So I'd have to give that another watch. But the other ones, I've not heard of. If I'm being honest, Mark, I've not heard of the other movies, so I'm definitely going to check them out, buddy. So I appreciate them recommendations, mate. Mark is a great guy, and he's given some great recommendations over the years. So thank you to everyone who's recommended them movies. That's it for another show, ladies and gents. It's been great to be back. Like I said, I do these shows now the podcasts don't come out every week, but every time I do a podcast episode, I really enjoy it. I get a bit tongue-tied sometimes. I get when you do like 40, 50 minutes of talking, sometimes you lose, especially now it's warm as well. It is warm. It's like very humid here at the moment. But yeah, as always, I really enjoy doing this, and I enjoy people watching it and leaving comments and letting me know their thoughts on it. So I appreciate it, as always. Thank you very much, guys. If you enjoyed this video today, anyway, let me know thank you very much for watching this video today as well. Thank you very much for watching this video today, ladies and gents. If you enjoyed this video today, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed on YouTube. And if you're listening to this on a podcast app of your choice, please do subscribe to the app and leave a 5-star review. All your reviews really do help, ladies and gents. But let me know your favorite some of your favourite best third in the movie trilogy movies, folks. What are some of your favourites? What are some of your favourite trilogies that have the third movie that really, nails it on as a classic trilogy? What do you think about the case covers today? The Nightmare on Elm Street. Which one is your favourite? Some of your favourite, you've got Movie Cheer Fest 2 coming up soon. What are some of your favourite 80s movies as well? Leave me some of your thoughts. I also want to know as well, Fright Night, The Count of Monte Cristo. Let me know your thoughts on both of them two movies. I want to know your thoughts. Which one's your favourite, the original Fright Night or the remake? What are your thoughts on that as a classic Halloween movie? And The Count of Monte Cristo. Let me know if you've not seen that movie. Check it out. If you have watched it, let me know. Is it a revenge movie? Is it a prison escape movie? Is it both? Let me know your thoughts on that movie. I think it's fantastic. Anyway, it's been a cracking show. Really enjoyed it. thank you very much for watching, ladies and gents. Remember to spread a bit of movie cheer, and as always, I will see you next time.